How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I am joined by a special guest, Irma, and I'll have her introduce herself and all of her credentials. From Positive Principles, this is Irma.
Hi, happy Valentine's. My name is Irma Santiago, and I am a psychotherapist. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have 25 years of experience working with families, particularly Latinos. In 2015, I became a couples counselor. I was certified by Harvard University. And I am a dialectic behavioral therapy facilitator. And that's who I am.
All right, and today we want to talk a little bit about relationships. This is something that you're an area that you're very comfortable with, and you work with a lot of clients on that aspect of their lives is, the relationship dynamic, which I don't care if you have a great relationship, there's always something to improve on. Everybody gets tripped up at some point during a relationship. No relationship is perfect, and no relationship does not take hard work. Everyone needs hard work to make the relationship work out in the end.
That's correct, Jared. I bring 20 years of marriage, and sadly I divorced after 20 years of marriage. And in 2015, if someone would have asked me that 10 years ago that I was going to be a couples therapist, I would have thought that it was the most absurd thing, because I failed in marriage. And when you divorce, it is a failure. That's my opinion. But fortunately, I was so privileged and so lucky that I was able to participate in a training. And although I was an individual therapist, going to a couples training to be a couples therapist changed my perspective to turn me into a better therapist while working with couples.
Sure, and I'm sure going through that training definitely helped you. Even the divorce itself probably gave you a lot of lessons that you can learn. I feel like through failure is where we learn the most about ourselves, about anything. Hindsight, what they say, is 20/20. So I feel like every failure is just a lesson, a stepping stone to something greater in the future. That's how I always tend to look at it, or how I try to look at it, the perspective I decide to take moving forward with anything in my life. So I'm sure that's what makes you an even better couples counselor, couple therapist, is being able to have that failure, learn your lesson from the things that didn't work out, and be able to pull on experiences that didn't work out and be able to apply them in certain scenarios that maybe your clients are dealing with.
Exactly. And also, coming from a family background where divorce was so abundant, it made me even value even more the institution of marriage. I think that today, more than that, any time of my life, I strongly believe in marriage, and that's the premise of my practice, to help couples in crisis to remain married, to navigate their crisis, no matter what. I know that I have been criticized a lot in the past, that I have supported a lot of couples who have gone through the most horrific experience. But one of the good things about Harvard is that help couples dealing with domestic violence, infidelity, substance abuse. Obviously, there are situations that it's impossible. You need two to tango, and you need two individuals committed to make a marriage work. But yes, I strongly believe in marriage. I think that couples should work things out. And if there is something catastrophic going on, like domestic violence, it must stop. And we should collaborate, in order to help couples to remain married and to turn their marriage strong. Because I think that we bring a lot of our own wounds, a lot of our own lack of healing to the relationship with the intention of repeating, and we'll talk about that later. But that's my premise, to help couples remain married, no matter what. We can do it.
Yes, and in something that you said there is super intriguing, is that we tend to take a lot of our own problems into a relationship. So I think a lot of times, even though it may be more of a subconscious thing, is a lot of the fights or a lot of disagreements tend to come from maybe a place of one person feeling insecure and reflecting their own insecurities on the other person, and placing blame on the other person because it's too painful sometimes to face that yourself. So it's easier for you to say, hey, this is your fault. And then all of a sudden you're getting into this argument. I don't know if that's something that you see quite a bit. But what I've realized is, I even notice it with myself. Sometimes you can bring up an argument about something and then later you reflect on it and say, well, what was that even about? Because what happened isn't even something that I'm upset about, but it's something that I feel like I'm not adequate in that area. So I felt like I had to defend myself. So I decided to spark an argument and try to twist it so that I felt better about myself by putting the blame on somebody else.
Interesting. In my office, since I started working as a couples therapist, I have a mirror, and people wonder that mirror is for me to look at myself. No, that's one of my clinical tools. That mirror symbolizes that a lot of our fights is with us. And whenever I have couples in front of me, I bring the mirror. Instead of having like a belt, you know, when you are in a boxing fight, people have the belt. I have the mirror, and I bring the mirror. I say, look, it's about you. It's about you. So that mirror, exactly like you say, it's our own wounds. It's our own pain that we bring to the relationship, and we think that we need to transfer this to you. But at the end, it's about my unresolved issues that we bring to a marriage with the expectation of somebody else to heal that. If you love me, you have to heal me. Somehow you have to, that wound that I have open, you have to stitch it and heal it for me with your love, by loving me unconditionally. And I think that that's the biggest confusion and misconception that we have, that unconditional love means you have to love me so much that I heal, but that's not the way it is.
Yep.
That's not the way it is.
And that's an interesting point that brings me to something that, you know, even though that I'm aware of it, it's still a mistake that I tend to make even in my relationship is, like you said, you have that expectation of, if you love me, you should almost know what to do to heal this. Your love should be enough to heal it. You're putting the responsibility on somebody else. But that goes back to like the unwritten rules that we have, where there'll be an unwritten rule that we live our life by, and everybody's life is different. We experience the same event in so many different ways based on past experiences. So we all have different values of how we live our life. So we expect we never tell the other person this. I'll never say my rules out loud to this person, but I expect them to play that game of the relationship by my rules. And if they violate my rules, I tend to punish them for it. That's what we all do, whether we realize it or not. We punish them for breaking these unwritten rules that they didn't even know they were playing the game by, and that causes a lot of tension in a relationship. And, you know, like I said, you're punishing them for something they didn't even know they did wrong because they can't get into your head, they can't understand those things. So that really made me think of that when you said that we get into a relationship and we expect the other person's love to kind of heal ourselves, and we kind of place the responsibility on them because, back to the point of, it's too painful to deal with it ourselves. We feel better by putting the responsibility on them and saying, like, listen, you should know what to do. You should know what I need to heal me, and vice versa. And it creates a lot of tension, but, you know, it's something that's never talked about, nothing that's communicated, and there's always a disconnect there. I see, even in a relationship where you're even aware of those things, there's still that disconnect.
Jared, I have been working with couples who have been married for 10, 15 years, and they don't know each other. So if they don't know each other, imagine knowing the rules. I think that a lot of couples are dating or they're married and they're doing the very basic, you know, marriage is about cohabitation, there is some sexuality about it, there is some, you know, for the traditional couples, they work, they go to work, they come home. But some people, they don't even look at each other. They don't even know who they are. And I think that something that I do in my practice as a couples therapist, I am very visual, and I write down and I ask people very, very basic things about the relationship, you know, like what is not allowed in a relationship that you have not communicated to someone. Something as basic as, I don't like when you go out by yourself, and I don't like, you know, I can give you hundreds of examples. I don't want you to communicate with your ex-partner, or I don't like when you go and visit someone without me, or, you know, I can hundreds and hundreds of of examples of very basic rules that ruin a marriage, that people get so hurt, but it has to do again with unresolved wounds. So I frequently do contracts. Every time couples come to my office, I do a contract. Okay, this week, what is not allowed? What is allowed? What things hurt you? Something as, you didn't call me today. You went to work, you work 8 hours. Some people expect that you send me 3 messages, that you call me, because I feel that you are abandoning me. So basic things like that.
Yes, and I feel like a lot of people don't communicate that. Like you said, they may be even married for 15, 20 years, but there's a difference between talking and communicating. I think that those two kind of get misconstrued quite a bit. But back to what you were saying of, like, all right, I expect you to check in or to do these certain things, but a lot of people don't communicate that to their significant other, or if they do, they communicate to a point of accusation. I'm accusing you of hurting me by not doing this, where you have to kind of almost take a step back and understand that that person's lens of the world or how they live their life may be different. And if you don't communicate that that's a need that you need to be fulfilled by that other person, there's no way they're going to know that you need it fulfilled. It's not that they don't have the best intentions. It's not that they don't care about you, but it's that unless they know to communicate that to you, there's no way of them knowing that that's what they need to do to make you feel loved or feel cared about, because they probably feel in a completely different way.
And I know, and I think that a lot of my work is asking questions. And we think that it's asking very complex questions. And at the end of the day, it's asking very basic questions. And couples do get in trouble because they don't know the basics of each other. You know, this is what I need. This is what hurts me. And we can continue talking about this at length. But yes, communication is a big problem. Yes, communication, especially people who are wounded. People who come from 2 different backgrounds and they come to a relationship and they have different wounds and that's why it's so important, in my opinion, couples counseling pre-getting married, during marriage and post, so you're always, keeping in touch with that. What is important, what hurts me, what distance me, what keep me close to you. Yes. And
I also think that everybody's definition of what they think a healthy relationship should look like is different. So, for example, I've personally never seen my parents get into an argument. Therefore, it took me a while in my relationship that if we did have some sort of disagreement, to metaphorically not jump off the cliff and say, oh my God, we're getting in an argument, that means we're not right for each other. And I think that's different from every person, whether you grew up in a household where there's constant fighting. To them, a fight is nothing, an argument is nothing. It's something that's easier to take. But I think that that's where, a lot of communication and like you said, wounds that are carried over from past experiences play a role in the relationship. And if you really don't take that time to understand your partner and what their background is, where they're coming from, what their blueprint of a successful, healthy relationship is, it's hard to navigate that successfully and have whether that be a successful relationship or a marriage. And it's very hard to be able to do that moving forward if you don't take the time to learn about somebody else and who you're with. However, I want to clarify something that you say. For some people, the ongoing chaos and meaning argument becomes the normalcy. It's not the normalcy. Relationships should not be about arguing. It shouldn't be about chaos. What happens is that chaotic families tend to replicate that. Yeah. And it becomes a norm. Well, this is norm, arguing, chaos, drama. If we don't do this, something is wrong with us. So it's not about you becoming attuned to that other person's background. Yes, maybe that's the blueprint in that person, but to bring that into this marriage, it also, we need to hold that person accountable that's part of your wound. Yes. And my also passiveness, can also be both aspects needs to be reflected. So this relationship can be successful, because a lot of people, when you come from chaos becomes the norm, and it's about understanding, where is the middle point for this couple? What works for this couple? Absolutely. And back to what we're saying about, communication, everything like that, and that's the only way to resolve those issues too, is to, like you said, first understand their background, like you said, you shouldn't accept that behavior. You shouldn't accept the chaos as normalcy. That doesn't mean like, okay, they come from a chaotic background, so now we have to live in chaos to make this person feel comfortable. But I think that understanding where that person comes from helps you be maybe a little bit more patient, or helps you understand the approach that you need to take to be able to create your own brand new blueprint together to be able to have a successful relationship moving forward.
And when I meet with my couples in crisis, I always hold each one accountable. I say, what is the change you're going to make this week? And what is the change you are going to make? Because sometimes we just spend a lot of time, you have to change. No, what change I'm going to make? How I'm going to hold myself accountable this week so I can make my week. Because it's change, it's a lot of work. Change takes a lot of reflection and reminders that I have to do my part. You have to do your part. So yeah, I frequently do that in my practice. You know, what are you holding yourself accountable, and how are you going to change?
And how often do you see? Because I've noticed this a lot, and even if you do it, a lot of this time I feel like this happens subconsciously. But I feel like a lot of couples tend to almost keep score in terms of things that I've done for you and you didn't replicate, or vice versa. And you pull on past events to be able to tell, like, hey, I'm right in the situation. These are all the things that I've done for you. How can you say that about me? And I feel like there's a lot of that goes on. Do you see that quite a bit?
You know what? When you say subconsciously, I always like to add that it's consciously, subconsciously. That is a conscious. Yeah. We are consciously doing something. We think that is subconsciously, but it is conscious. Yeah. There is a level of awareness that we try to cover up because we are at the end trying to save ourselves. Yes. That means that I don't want to hold myself accountable, so I'm going to be subconsciously. But I repeat in my Spanish videos that 2021 is about bringing the consciousness. It's about bringing the awareness that I am finally recognizing that I am consciously doing this. And I always use the expression secondary gain, that there is a secondary gain behind our so-called subconsciously. Yeah. Because that means either I'm avoiding, I'm putting the blame on you, and I'm not aware, I'm subconscious, but there is a consciously. And I think that once we bring that to the relationship, the consciously, I want to be conscious about this. It's a difficult word for me to say in English. Consciously, right? Consciously about this. Yes, subconsciously, consciously, I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm doing certain things, but at the end, it's about us. It's about us. It's about us, and so.
And I also feel like people will do whatever they can to avoid, like you said, the responsibility, to hold themselves accountable, to avoid the pain. It's like, what can I do to avoid pain? And I think exactly what you're talking about is like, I'll say it's a subconscious thing, like I didn't know what was happening, but I'm consciously choosing to say it's subconscious so that I don't feel the repercussions of my decisions, or of how I'll feel if it was my fault. It's too painful to be like, this is my fault, I messed up.
But it has to do with our upbringing. And that's why I love to, and we will continue as we continue. I love doing these videos with you. I think that it's so important for each individual in a relationship to see our family genogram, our family of origin, our family tree, because of all these skills and lack of skills. It has to do that people do this because they don't have the skills to do this. So that's why they replicate. That's why we're in a cycle, in replicating deficits and strengths. So that's why it's so important to look at our family tree to understand from where it comes from. So tell me about your credentials and your amazing life coach. And I know that you're a very well-read individual. I have known you for 3 years, and I have always enjoyed talking with you, and you have brought a lot of expertise also into my life as a psychotherapist. I think that I include you as one of my gurus and someone who has brought a lot of information working with couples. So tell me about your credentials.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity with the positive principles to kind of give me an opportunity to get a little bit more experience one-on-one with some different types of clients under my belt that's been definitely helpful. I took a course in the science of happiness from the University of Berkeley online. That's kind of the area that I really wanted to focus on. Is I feel everybody's after happiness. Everybody's after enjoying the good life, or that's what they're searching for. Whether they say it's money or something else, they're more or less after the feeling that money brings them. Whatever the feeling that success, or what they think success is going to bring them, which ultimately is happiness, is what they're after. So I thought that was a great starting point for me. Dealing with depression and multiple different pits in my life where I've gone into deep depression, I've been able to find ways out of that. And I think with a lot of different things in your life, when you get passionate about something that hits you so deep at home into your soul, you want to share that with as many people as possible. So that's kind of, for me, where the passion was born out of. Like, I was suffering mentally for so many different periods of my life, and kind of having to find my own way out of it. And then you realize, okay, I want to be able to end the suffering that I had for other people, because some people suffer less, some people suffer just as much, some people suffer more. It's all different depending on the person, but that's kind of where that passion was born from, to learn as much as I possibly can. How can I share as much as I've learned to be able to help people? And for the longest time, I didn't think coaching was an option. I had this idea that you had to be rich to be a coach, or no one will listen to you. And then I read Tony Robbins' book. I was struggling out of college. I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I got to find something. And there was this thing that I was passionate about that I didn't think I was qualified to do, or that I didn't think I could do.
You are qualified.
And then I read Tony Robbins' book, and it was like, no, this is what I want to do. I love this. It gives me more energy than it takes from me. I could do this all day. I could literally talk about this for 20 hours and not get tired. And time just seems to disappear.
I want to share with my viewers that you are one of the most qualified additions to Positive Principles, and I think that your training is amazing. I validate tremendously that course that you have taken, and how well read you are, and your mentor. I know you have a mentor in New York City who has been formidable in your process as a life coach. Sometimes we think that we have to have a master's degree, a PhD. That's not true. I think that there is certain charisma, there is certain quality that you certainly have. You and I bring to Positive Principles. What I like of your collaboration is that we both do different perspectives. I am a big pharmacological. I used to work for the state of Connecticut for 15 years, so I do validate the benefits of medications because I have seen the improvements in some individuals. And what I like of you is that you believe in the behavioral change, which is good. It's a good combination for both of us. And I value that into my practice, that you bring that part. So it's a good balance. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was something that's always excited me. Once I was able to kind of get over that, I actually read something in a book by Dr. Amen, The End of Mental Illness, and he was talking about Abraham Lincoln and how he actually suffered from depression. Most people don't know that. He suffered from deep depression, and the reason why he was such a good leader and able to kind of change the way the nation worked was because he knew what the suffering was, and he knew how to get over those bad feelings. He was able to help other people do the same thing. And when I read that, I really connected with that. I said, that's me. And like you said, everybody thinks you need to have a degree or the paper, and yes, those things for sure help, absolutely. But if you have a passion for something and you have a willingness to learn as much as you can for something that you're passionate about, something that you feel like you have a greater purpose for, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to kind of learn that information. If you're hungry for the information, you're going to find it. And for me, it's been an endless amount of books, podcasts, looking up to, like you said, I have a mentor in New York City who's been doing this for a long, long time, who has taken me under his wing and taught me certain things about how he does things. You take a little bit from every person, and the people who have impacted you the most, even though you may have never met them, through their books, through their work, you take everything and you kind of wrap it all up, and you find a way to kind of package that to say, all right, I'm taking my experience, what I like from everybody, and the years and years of experience that they put into a book that you can get. And, you know, let's say it takes you 10 hours to read a book, you get all that information in 10 hours versus years and years of schooling. So I do think there is a little bit of a stigma around, you know, certain different types of qualifications. But I think, you know, for me, I am confident in my ability that if you put someone in front of me and they're open-minded, that I can 100% change their life for the better.
I think that, Jared, this is the beginning of a great collaboration between Jared and I, two different perspectives. I have my pharmacological together with the behavioral change, and Jared is life coaching, behavioral change. Both are valid. I think that both are equally important. For some individuals, one have more weight than the other, and both are certainly, you know, respected. We are not here to say that one is better than the other, but that's what I like of bringing you on board to my practice, and it has been a pleasure sharing this pre-Valentine's conversation, and I hope that this is the first one of many.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity for Positive Principles, and like you said, this is going to be something that I definitely want to do moving forward. More collaborations, two different perspectives, offers a lot of different values for a lot of people.
Viewers.
Absolutely. Yes.